is not our job to save everyone. There's a freedom that you experience to feel, to be, to all of those things, because it's like, I don't have to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. I can exist, and my existence is enough. We feel like our value has to be tied to how many people we can help and how many people we're bringing along. That's not where our value comes from. You are valuable and you are worthy just because you exist.
Welcome to Journey to Joy Live, a podcast to promote wellness, resilience, and inspire joy. Be empowered to balance your mental, physical, financial, aspirational, and social health while providing mental health awareness and breaking down the stigma of mental illness in the Black community. I'm your host, Dr. It Joy, and I'm here to help you transform life's challenges into opportunities for joy. Let's begin the journey together. All right, we're in episode 95, When the Job Breaks You, the hidden toll of workplace trauma. And I have a special guest, Julia Rock. She is founder and CEO of Rock Career Development. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I feel like, when did we meet? Was it on
A couple
Threads?
months ago,
Yeah, I was like, it was Threads or LinkedIn or one of those, but
it
I'm
was
excited.
LinkedIn.
I tell people LinkedIn is the place to be, y'all, but I'm
It's
excited to be here.
great.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, LinkedIn is great for networking. I've been meeting a lot of awesome people and guests, of course. So you want to tell everybody who don't know who you are, what else about you?
Absolutely. So I'm Julia Rock, founder and CEO at Rock Career Development. Rock Career Development is a Houston-based consulting firm, and we help organizations to retain their best talent and get the best out of them through leadership development solutions. So we provide keynote speaking, training, executive coaching, and consulting, and we help companies to uncover and address leadership gaps so people stay and the company makes more money. And so that's a little bit about what I do.
That is awesome. I think I'm remembering how we connected. You probably reached out like, "Oh, yay, I can hook you up with speaking." And I'm like, "Oh, yay, come on my podcast." Because your services sound great. I would love that.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's been a couple months though. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Oh, yeah, because this date was a long time coming, so
Yeah.
we are finally here. Well, I am glad that, we connected, and we came up with workplace trauma because it sounds like you had experienced workplace trauma yourself.
Yeah. So at this stage, I'm a full-time entrepreneur running my business.
Mhm.
But during my corporate career, I had some definite moments of workplace trauma, especially
Mhm.
in 2021. Things got pretty bad for me then, went through depression, weight gain, all the things. And so glad that I'm on the other side of that. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was a dark road for a period of time for sure.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, burnouts, we dealing with, and sometimes we're dealing with a lot of just balancing different aspects of our life. And then when you throw in trauma at work, it's like, come on. So, that really can lead to stress and, like you said, depression and all kinds of things, especially with weight. So, appreciate you for coming on and helping the audience here try to figure out how to address workplace trauma when they have it. So let's jump right in. What exactly is workplace trauma and how do we know when our job is affecting us more deeply than the day-to-day stress? Because let's be honest,
I
be
I
straight.
mean, and that's the thing because you don't wanna confuse the daily stress of, "Oh, I had this going on," or, "I had too
Yeah.
much work," right? But
Mhm.
workplace trauma is really about it's an accumulation of harmful experience or hurtful experiences in the workplace. And so you begin to feel like your sense of self-worth, your safety, your sense of belonging, even all of
Mhm.
that has kind of been violated or eroded in some way. And so that collection of experiences, those things they continue to compound on one another. So it's not just one situation here, it's not just one week. Thinking about my experiences, I went through something over a period of months. Uh,
Wow.
and so you just continue to feel weighed down, and because it's happening so consistently,
Yeah.
can't really see your way out of it. So that's the difference between kind of that day-to-day stress where it's like, you have one good day and then you have a stressful day and you kind of go back and forth. That workplace trauma is it's really an accumulation and a weight
Mhm.
down of all those experiences.
It sounds like it could be a variety of things. Of course, discrimination, it could be, harassment, I would imagine. What are some other options?
Yeah, and I mean, the microaggressions even, so and we talk a lot about microaggressions because sometimes it may be one thing that's said, but then you have multiple people who are saying the same thing or different things keep being said, and they seem like small things, but again, it's a compound effect, of those things. And sometimes it's even just your abilities being questioned on a consistent basis. And that's one of the things that also happened with my situation was that I was a top performer in my role, and that's how I got nominated for the assignment that I was in the first place. And the individual consistently was questioning why I was there. How did I get that job? What did they look at for me to even get there? And they were trying to test my skills. And so
Wow.
to question yourself because 'cause you're like, I thought I was legit being here, but now it seems like someone's trying to
Mm.
I don't belong here.
Ooh, so when I hear that, I mean, we deal with imposter syndrome anyway,
Yeah,
right? Just
big
it's
facts.
no outside forces, and then you got legit people actually questioning you. So then, what did that do for you? Because I think you mentioned to me that you dealt with some imposter syndrome. So what did that do for you in terms of imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I mean, you just begin questioning yourself and begin questioning things you have no business questioning, right? Like that's the biggest thing. It's
Mhm.
that you begin questioning your own accomplishments, things that you have done and seen with your own 2 eyes, you still begin to question like, "Well, was I really that good? Was I, was did I really achieve this?" And you start asking yourself like, "Well, do I even belong here?" And it's like,
Yeah.
you know what you've done, and but that kind of, you know, I'm trying to find the right way to put it,
Yeah.
but you just feel like, "I don't belong here. I'm a fraud."
Mhm.
Finding me out. Even though you've proven to yourself time and time again that you can
You
deliver
belong.
and that you can perform, you start to question things. You begin to question your own performance, your abilities, your smarts, your brilliance. You question everything, and again, things you have no business questioning.
Yeah, and it really sucks when, workplace trauma is involved because it almost, like, validates you feel invalidated, but it validates what you're feeling with imposter syndrome. Because with imposter syndrome, the idea is that, no, those none of those are true, which is right, it's not true. You are qualified, you do belong, but then the imposter syndrome makes you feel like, "I don't belong," but then when someone is discriminating against you or picking on you or, there's a toxic work environment that's legit making you feel that way, that is highly unfortunate because it almost validates that, even though that
Yeah,
isn't true too.
that's right. That's right. That's right.
Right? It's like it's convoluted, but whoa.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how did as far as you because you said you experienced depression, obviously imposter syndrome and weight gain and things like that. Was it sudden for you? How long did it take for you to notice that, "Oh my goodness, this toxic environment is actually leading to some issues, and I need to do something about it?"
Yeah, so for me, everything started while I was in the job. So
Yeah.
as I was, being mistreated, being questioned, being berated on a daily basis, that's when I started to comfort myself with food. So
Mhm.
that's when the weight gain started to happen because I was getting into a dark place mentally. And so I was trying to self-soothe in a certain way. So I would go home from work, and I remember the meal like it was yesterday. It was macaroni and cheese with chicken from Bar Louie, and I would have donut holes with chocolate sauce. And I know it sounds kind of like, it's like that seems like a lot of food, right? But in my head, it was just like, this is what makes me feel good. And so I would be eating that, and I would be eating that and I'd be watching animated films. So I would
Mm.
animated films on Netflix and
Yeah.
eating myself into a bigger size. Uh,
Yeah.
and the thing about it is, and when I talk to people about depression, it's because you have to forgive yourself for what you do when you're depressed because your brain chemically changes. Nothing in my brain told me, "Hey, Joe, you probably shouldn't be eating that much food. That's not okay. You should probably."
Yeah.
Right? But when you're in that dark mental headspace, it's just
Yeah.
whatever I need to do to feel better, I'm gonna do that. But then even after I left that assignment, I
Mhm.
went back home feeling just I was questioning myself still. And so I
Course.
still felt worthless, right? So I still continued to overeat. I still I stopped speaking up at work in my next
Mhm.
assignment because of what I had experienced in that role.
Yeah.
It's not just what happens during that period of time. Those effects can go on with you for a long period after that until you're able to come out of it.
Yeah, yeah, and just hearing you what you went through, it was a true depression, and whatever the depression is triggered by, it obviously could be any type of trauma, and for your experience, it was definitely the workplace trauma, and lack of, appetite or overeating, increased appetite is a legit symptom of depression, and the negative thoughts that we might have, we call them thought traps or cognitive distortions. Again, if you have someone actually telling you these things, it doesn't really feel like a cognitive distortion because it's like you're taking what they're telling you, and then you going down that slippery slope of making it worse, like, "I don't belong here. I suck. I don't need to live," then it goes straight into suicidal thoughts. So it gets worse and worse and worse. So when you have like a trigger and a trauma that's leading to it, it's perpetuating those symptoms. So getting out and finding treatment is definitely important.
Yeah, and I think the tough part is, when you're in that space, right? You're spiraling by yourself, right? You're spiraling by yourself because, no, you're not hearing the voices of other people. You're in this dark place. And
Yeah.
so that's why I will continue to repeat,
Yeah.
forgive yourself for whatever was happening because your body and your mind were just trying to keep you alive because when you're
Yeah.
depressed, like you said, you get into suicidal thoughts, self-harm, and if you're spiraling by yourself, it's hard to see how you're hurting other people or hurting yourself. So you will hear me say this multiple times throughout this episode.
Yeah.
If you've been in that place, you gotta forgive yourself and give yourself grace.
Yeah, so important. Give yourself grace. We were talking about that just last week, talking about self-compassion and not being a self-critic. So this is actually a really good follow-up to that episode because
Yeah.
that is so important. What you are thinking can definitely lead to either joy or depression. So it's a matter of monitoring your thoughts, thinking about your thoughts. What are you thinking and how can you change it and reframe your thoughts and what you're thinking? So how did you come out of that? Did you get the treatment?
Yeah, so I'll be 100% honest. This is gonna be a very real space. And so I was at a point where I was suicidal. I was at a point where I was suicidal, and I want to just make sure that people also understand part of the depression and the pressure is about the fact that you also have to keep going to work and trying to show up every day and
Yeah.
smile,
Put on a
right?
mask.
And you're putting on this mask every day. You're trying to do your job well while this person is saying negative things to you, while you're being, harmed in this environment. You have to keep putting on that face. So that's also a weight that's crushing you on a daily basis.
Mhm, mhm.
And so when I finally got to the point where I was suicidal, and then I was asking God, I was like, "Are we gonna end this thing or no?"
Yeah.
And his answer was no, obviously. And so finally I got to the point of I don't like how I'm feeling, but I'm not going to end it.
Oh,
But
that's a
but
good
I
place to be.
so I'm just like, "Okay,
Yeah.
so now I have to go up from here because I can't stay in this darkness if I'm not gonna end it." And
Right.
that was really just
Good.
the space I got to, and I just said, "If I can get out of bed tomorrow, that means
Mm.
I can get out of the bed the next day." And it hurt,
Yeah.
but if I can keep getting out of bed one day after another, like, that was really the turning point for me. And I'll be honest, when it comes to folks who've had suicidal thoughts and things,
Mhm.
what for me, it was really around looking at my family. I didn't care about
Yeah.
me being here. It was like, I don't wanna harm my family. And so knowing that, that was
Yeah.
also something that helped me to come out of it, because I said, "What would my mama and my daddy think? What would my mommy and my daddy think? What would this do to them if I decided to leave this planet, prematurely?" And so getting to that point and hitting that rock bottom, that really was the place of me finally getting out of it, because it's like, "Well, Julie, you're not gonna stay here. If you're not gonna end it, don't stay here. Get out of it." And
Exactly.
it wasn't an overnight thing, but I said, "If I could get out of bed tomorrow, that means I can get out of bed the next day and the day after
Next
that."
day.
And it was a long journey back. It was a month's journey back, but I was willing to just keep getting out of bed.
Oh, okay, a month. Okay.
Yeah, it was months long getting, because once I got out of the assignment, I was still dealing with the depression and being overweight, but I kept that
Right.
mindset of, if I can get out of bed
I
tomorrow,
love that.
then I have another day to try to fix this and to try to feel better and to get healthy. And so I just kept trying to find small things that would bring me joy, or small things that I could work on,
Oof.
because it would give me something to get out of bed for the next day. And so you got to just take it however small you take it, whether it's a minute, whether it's an hour, whether it's just getting out of bed the next day. Take it
Wow.
in as small of the chunks as you have to. It doesn't have to be, "I'm cured, I'm"
Exactly. Day by day, minute by minute.
minute by minute if you have to, just to make sure that, because the world needs you, right? And so take it as slow as you need to fight your way back.
Wow, Julia, you saying all the things, and thank you so much for being so transparent and feeling comfortable as this is a safe space for you to talk about it, because that is what, I try to convey here on this podcast, for us to be able to be transparent about what we deal with, because other people are dealing with it too. And you said a lot of things, and the key there is that your mindset really can help get you through. And you gave yourself a lot of positive affirmations. The positive affirmations don't have to be super huge. You just literally told yourself some facts that, hey, if I can get up tomorrow, I can get up the next day. If I can get up the next day, I can get up the following day. And you also made a decision. We're talking about Journey to Joy, right? That's what this is, Journey to Joy Live. So I talk about that all the time, that once you choose joy, you choose to enter into that journey. You said, I am not going to take myself out. I'm going to be here, but I also don't want to stay in depression. So that would meant only one direction, which is going in towards joy. So that is very important, that once you make that decision, it doesn't mean overnight. It obviously still took days later. Another thing you said, basically, I want to use the terms protective factors. You mentioned that, well, you really couldn't see yourself much in the future, if I could say it that way, but you worried about your family. If I'm going, what's my family going to do? How are they going to be hurt? That's a protective factor, meaning the fact that you have family that's keeping you here, you're not gonna take yourself out. So that's really important. Psychiatrists, therapists, all the people, we look for protective factors. This, shows that, okay, this person isn't such a huge high risk of suicide, but it's definitely protective to have that support system. That's what we talk about, having a strong support system all the time. But thank you so much for sharing. It's key. You said a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, because it used to be hard to talk about, because depression is taboo. And then, you have this big, sexy job, and people think like, well, what do you have to be depressed about? Right.
Yeah.
You have all these things going for you. And it's like, and so for a lot of folks who are in that kind of
Yeah.
high earning, sexy career, sexy job title, for a lot of folks, they may be struggling with this, because like, well, who do I go and talk to? Because all of my friends are going to think I'm being self-centered. All of my friends think
Mm.
that I'm overreacting. And so for a lot of time, I just held it in. I was so embarrassed about it, because I was like, what are people gonna think of me? Julia's so weak. She was depressed and
Mm.
suicidal, and she had this big job, and then she was ready to just end it because of whatever. And then I had to get over that, because, like, first of all, who cares what people think? Let I mean,
Exactly.
I don't care. But also it's about, you're still a human being, no matter what job you have, no matter what degree you have, no matter where you live, no matter, the circumstances you were born under, you are still a human being who has a right to feel what you feel when you feel it.
Mhm.
And what I also thought about is, my story could empower someone else,
For sure.
right? If I share my story, could I prevent somebody from taking that step? and harming themselves or ending it or doing something irreversible? Could my story help someone change their life? And it would be selfish of me to
Yeah.
keep the story to myself because I'm
Yeah.
worried about what some naysayer that I don't even know for real is going
Right.
right? I'm concerned with somebody who doesn't matter. I'm gonna prevent myself from sharing a story that could help someone because of that. That's just too small of a thing to hold it back for.
Yeah, yeah, and it's always the case that, there's gonna be, that we need to hear, the testimony, like, that something went wrong, because when we hear that someone's perfect and everything went great, nobody learns from that. So
Ab
we really wanna hear when someone's been through something and how to get out, because we're all going through it.
right.
Everybody has some type of stressor. Nobody has a perfect life, and that is why platforms like this is important, because it's okay to not be okay, but let's not stay not okay. Let's get okay. Like you said, you made that decision.
Yes, yes, because I think that we were got to a point where we were just doing the full stop, right? It's okay to not be okay, and then we kinda, like, gave the full stop, and it's like, "Well,
That's it.
how long we gon'
Be
not be
not okay.
okay? Are we gonna come out of it or not?"
Right.
Right, and so and there's nothing wrong with taking the time that you need, but there has to be some sort of forward movement, and like I said, that's the point that I got to. I said is like, every day I'm coming home, or I'm eating the mac and cheese with the chicken and the donut holes, and it's like, I don't like how I feel.
Yeah.
I don't like how I look. I said, but I'm not gonna take the easy way out, so what am I going to do here? And so that's kind of the point that we all have to get to with ourselves. And so I'm from Brooklyn. I had a tough conversation with myself. But some of us have to be gentler with ourselves, whatever you need to do. But you've got to look yourself in the mirror and say, what decision am I going to make today?
Mhm.
And then tomorrow you may have to look yourself in the mirror and have that same conversation. And you may have to have it day after day until you finally are able to make that final decision. And I wanted to go back to something you said about decision making and choosing
Mhm.
joy.
Yeah.
Part of the thing with imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
is that, sometimes we lack confidence. I don't feel confident. I don't feel like I belong here. But if there's something that I have learned on my journey is that confidence is not a feeling. It is a decision.
Oh, yeah.
So if you are going to if you make the decision today that I'm going to walk into every room knowing I belong here, I'm going to walk into every room knowing that I have the skill set and the expertise and the talent to be here, so
Mhm.
I'm gonna show up in my fullest way. That's a decision that you have the agency to make. So the
That's
I don't
great.
feel and I don't feel, we're gonna put that out of our heads today.
Yeah. It's not about how you feel, it's just changing the way you think, and then how you feel comes later.
Absolutely,
'Cause a
absolutely.
lot of people get into that mindset with depression, anxiety, whatever it is we talking about, right? "Well, I
Mhm.
just don't feel like going to exercise. Well, I just don't feel like going to" whatever the case may be, and it's kinda like you gotta put the cart ahead of the horse and just do the thing. That's what behavioral activation therapy is all about. Making a list, making some tasks, and just doing those tasks whether you feel like it or not, and then eventually you will feel better. So
Right.
that's ooh, I'm glad you circled back on that. Making the decision.
Making the decision. Your mind is an extremely powerful thing. And I think that we have to give ourselves more credit mentally, that we are stronger than we think. We have more discipline than we think. And so if we are willing to not succumb to how we feel in the moment and let the confidence we have, let the discipline we have, let the motivation we have drive us, we'd be surprised at what we're actually able to achieve, overcome, thrive through,
Mhm.
but have to be willing to give ourselves a lot more credit.
'Cause at the end of the day, the feeling is temporary. So a
Yep.
lot of times when we're feeling this way, I literally just told a patient this, when you're feeling depression, it feels forever. So it feels permanent, and that's
It feels
why.
like it's not going anywhere. I don't know if you've ever seen
Yeah.
that photo where it's the cloud and it's standing
Mhm.
pristine.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's how you feel when you're depressed. It's
Following you.
a cloud that is just
Oof.
hanging over you everywhere you go. It feels very permanent.
It's a good depiction of it, because yeah, it seems permanent, and that's why they choose permanent solutions, and suicide is a permanent solution. We're not gonna see you again. So that but it's important to, even though you feel like it's permanent, to think, "Okay, what are some temporary solutions for me to get out of this?" It's
Right.
so important. And when you're feeling better, you having a list of positive things, positive thoughts, gratitude, coping strategies, all those things so that when you get into that permanent type feeling, then you're like, "Okay, what am I grateful of? Okay, what are those positive thoughts again? Okay, why should I live?
Right,
Okay, where's the number to the therapist? 988. Do I need to call the suicide hotline?" So, all
right.
those things are important to have ready.
Yeah, and one of the things that you said earlier is around, like, affirmations. I
Mhm.
think sometimes we make affirmations this grandiose thing, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
you gotta have the burning the candle and you're standing
Yeah.
in the mirror and all, and so we make a ritual out of it, and so sometimes it just feels like it's a daunting task. And so I would say that when it comes to affirmations, even just saying, "This went well today." I'm glad so I didn't cry today, right? That I'm happy that I didn't cry today, or I cried less today. And you do your hair and it's like, I like the way my hair looks today, right? And so
Yeah, something
sometimes
nice.
it doesn't have to be something big and grandiose. And that's one of the things that started to help me when did the I'm getting out of bed every day. It's like my hair looks pretty. I fluffed it up more and my hair looks pretty. And it's a small, small thing, or I would change my nail color and I got glitter on my nails and I'm like,
Mm,
"My nails are green. I like
sparkly.
green." Right? And so it's
Uh,
small, small things. So don't make it this big grandiose thing that just feels overwhelming because 'cause you're already overwhelmed. You don't need to add any overwhelm, even if it's positive, it's still
mhm.
overwhelming. So finding even just small things you can say to yourself can make a difference.
Those small things are important because there's always these small negative thoughts that go a long way. So
Right.
those small positive thoughts go a long way too.
That's right. That's right.
Be gentle with yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And you didn't mention alcohol or drugs, but a lot of times you turn to your mac and cheese and donut holes and chicken, but a lot of times people turn to the wine, and then that's a slippery slope because I've had people say, well, the wine's just not cutting it no more. I'm at a bottle a night. Now I'm at two bottles a night. Now I'm at some hard liquor. And then that goes into some other things. So definitely those are warning signs that something's not right. If you're increasing your alcohol or drug intake or starting to use drugs or looking for it. Or sex. Sex could be another thing. Like all of a sudden you just don't care who it is. You just gonna go out and find somebody just because you want to feel good. So comfort food is one thing, but then there's drugs too, or sex. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's and so being able to kinda look at how your behavior is changing, uh,
Mhm.
because like I said, I went from just eating normally to like I said, I'm having that kinda stuff. I'm like, "There's no
Yeah.
scenario under which I'm gonna be eating donut holes every night of the week." Like, where have we gone wrong? We have lost the plot, right? And so it's those slight and subtle changes in behavior that, like you said, it then becomes that slippery slope, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So getting back to the workplace trauma,
Yes.
what if, you leave that toxic job, then you go to the next job, then it's toxic. Then you go to the next job, then it's toxic. At a certain point, is there something that you're doing wrong or is it the job? What's going on with that?
Yeah, I think it come if you're going to multiple jobs back to back, this is a question of what assessment have I done,
Mhm.
especially after the first incident, before going to get employed somewhere else.
Yeah.
We also have a role to play in our success and our ability to thrive at work and find psychological safety and the support we need. And before you sign on the dotted line with an organization, it is your job to vet them and vet the environment.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's a paycheck, but if you know what you just came out of, you need to be doubly vigilant before signing up
Mm.
for something else.
Mm.
And so you have to ask yourself, what are the deal breakers
Mhm.
from the last environment? And really doing the right assessment of the new environment to figure out, is that kind of thing still happening? Let me talk to some former or current employees. Let me look at how long people have been at the
Yeah.
organization, doing the right level of recon to figure out what's happening there. It's also important to figure out what are my personal values
Yes.
and how do they match with this organization? So we know that DEI is under kind of, fire right now for that.
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
And if you know if that's something that's important to you, if you go into an organization that's anti-DEI and say, "I can't believe it's toxic. I'm so confused." Th then the question is, well, they told you who they were up front. Were you listening,
Mm.
right? And so part of it is that going from toxic environment to toxic environment,
Yeah.
the question is, what work are you doing ahead of time to make sure that history is not repeating itself? Are you taking the time to research, to ask questions, to reconnect and reflect on your personal values and your purpose before signing on the dotted line to join an organization?
That's good, and I don't mean my question to sound like blaming the victim or
No,
victim blame
not
or
at all.
anything like that, but what your answer is, yeah. I mean, you gotta do the vetting yourself and making sure and knowing your worth and not just accepting some job just because, like you said, it makes money, so not entering into what could potentially be another toxic environment just 'cause.
Right, and if you may allow me, I'm gonna say something that may hurt feelings, but the fact is, accountability is something that we could all step a little bit more into, right? No one is coming to save us. There's no savior riding in on a white horse who's gonna come save
No?
us from wherever it is, until Jesus comes, amen. Pass the offering plate until Jesus comes. We gotta figure this thing out, right? And we have to be willing to take accountability for the environments we have, and if we've gone through something traumatic, it is on us. It's not blaming you, but it's on us to say, "How do I protect myself? And am I willing to do the work required to make sure that this doesn't happen to me? Am I worth it enough to me to be willing to do the recon work, to have the conversations, to do the vetting, to have the right discipline with where I spend my time?" All of that goes back to accountability. And if we're not willing to be accountable for ourselves, we have to be okay with the results that may come out good, bad, or indifferent.
Oh, yeah, that's important, and honestly, that can cross over to other traumas, when it comes to, like, folks who've been in, multiple relationships with domestic violence. I mean, there's some environments you just honestly it's not like you chose it, it's not your fault and things like that, but certain times, because of lack of self-worth or lack of self-respect and things like that, you do find yourself settling for a certain spouse.
Mhm.
So what you're saying can cross over to different types of trauma.
Absolutely, and there's nothing wrong with taking time to reflect, right? So,
Yeah.
especially if you have the capacity to do so, like if you can even take just a month off between jobs. And again, I know inflation, tariffs, all the things. I fully understand that we're in a tough spot. But if you have the opportunity to take even a couple of weeks, if you can't take a full month, but give yourself the space so that you have some time to reflect. Because if you just
Yeah.
hop from here to there, you
Mhm.
any time where you've just been noise free. You've gone from one environment to another environment, and your brain hasn't had any time to decompress. Your body, your spirit hasn't had any time to decompress. So if there's any opportunity for you to take time, even if it's just a week, if that's all you can afford, take that.
Yeah.
Just so that you give yourself time to be noise free, so that you can make the best decision for your future.
You have to reflect, you have to become self-aware, know yourself, all the things.
Right. That's right.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Well, I really appreciate you. So if we wanna actually, talk about some practical steps, I mean, what are the first steps someone can take to begin healing, regaining their confidence after being broken down from a toxic job?
Man, just thinking about some of the things that I have kind of adopted. One is
Mhm.
just being honest with the experience that you had.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that, "Oh, it was just a tough assignment. If it was just
Mm.
difficult." It's
Mm.
really calling it what it was. It was a toxic work environment. It was traumatic for you. And that word has weight, but it's important for you to understand the gravity of it so that you can also give yourself some grace and space to rest and rebound from that. Because if you use trivialized language like, it was just a tough job or just a tough thing, then when you think about taking time to yourself, it's like, well, I shouldn't need that much time. This happens to everybody, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has a story to tell. And
Mhm.
so really naming it, and really, staring it in the face, then the next step is really giving yourself some grace and space. Forgive yourself, reflect, understand where you have room for growth, but understand where your boundaries were crossed and why you
Mhm.
felt unsafe and what harmed you, so that when those things appear again, that you feel confident on that you make the decision to be confident, excuse me, to say that,
Yeah.
"Hey, I don't have to go into this environment, I can walk away." Thinking about something else is also reflecting on who you are and what you do well.
Your
What are your
values.
strengths?
Mhm.
What do people come to you for? What do you help people with? How do you help put smiles on people's faces? Think about the joy that you bring to the world
Mhm.
through your skills, your gifts, your talents. Like, what do you bring to the world? And reflect on that. And think about what's it gonna be like for yourself when you're able to do those things in the fullest capacity and use your strengths like that again.
And get paid
And
for it.
and so again, choosing to have joy.
Mhm.
And one of the things also, getting help, right? Part of it is, I wish I had told people about what I was going through. Folks I talked to
Yeah.
afterwards, they were just like, "Why didn't you say anything?"
Right.
And I said I was too embarrassed to say anything. And
Mm.
so don't carry that weight by yourself. There are people in your circle who want to help you. And so don't carry that weight by yourself. And if you
Yeah.
can get a professional, whether it's through, financial means, if you have someone, just making sure that if you can talk to a professional, get that help if you need it.
Mhm.
I can't stress that enough. That's not a sign of weakness. That's a sign of strength.
Mm-mm.
Help.
Mhm.
And then the last thing I will say is, make sure that you're taking time for your small wins. Whatever positive thing happens, right? Something small that was successful for you, celebrate those. If you want to go get yourself the Starbucks latte with extra because
Yay.
this thing
Thank you.
happened, just take that extra moment, right? Because the small wins begin to compound. You feel better about yourself. You look at yourself in the mirror differently, and then you have a little extra pep in your step, and you sit up a little bit straighter when you think
Mhm.
about those wins. So take the time for those small wins. So those are just some of the things I would share.
Woo. Thank you so much. This is fire. So, and I wanted to mention so about the embarrassment thing at the root of, like, oh, I don't want to talk about it, I didn't want to share. It's just feeling like you have to be strong, feeling like you have to be superwoman, feeling like you're supposed to do it all. And that's what we've been talking about this last few months in general about us that just we're carrying so much and we feel like we have to do it all and we're not supposed to ask for help. So obviously well, we are saying over and over again, it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to ask for help. It's a sign of strength, like you said.
Yes, and I will say that I gave up my superwoman cape a long time ago, because my sister gave me, advice, because 'cause I'm like, if I fall down or if I'm struggling, what about all the people that are coming behind me?" And my sister was like, "Your responsibility first and foremost is always going to be to you." And
Mhm.
and he said, "You can't help the people behind you if you're falling apart, if you are mentally unwell, if you do not feel safe, if you are struggling, you are not helping the people behind you anyway." So she's like, Prioritize yourself. You do not have to be a superhero. Superheroes are fictional characters."
Exactly.
Superheroes are fictional characters. Superman, Wonder Woman, these are all figments of someone else's imagination. You are a
Exact
flesh and blood human being, you're not a machine, and you don't get paid enough to be a superhero. None of us get
exactly.
paid enough to be anybody's superhero, let's be real. And
Mhm.
so and so when we take that superhero cape off and realize it is not our job to save everyone, there's a freedom that you experience to feel, to be, to all of those things, because it's like I don't have to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. I can exist,
Yes.
and my existence is enough. We feel like our value has to be tied to how many people we can help and how many people we're bringing along. That's not where our value comes from. You are
Right.
valuable and you are worthy just because you exist. That's
Ooh, love it. You are valuable and worthy just because you exist.
that's right. That's right.
Unconditional worthiness. That is
Yeah.
great. So if you learn nothing else today, choose confidence. Choose joy.
That's
You
right.
can choose it. So I always ask my guests to talk about their personal journey to joy. I feel like you've already mentioned that, but is there anything else that you would like to mention about how your own personal journey to joy has been?
Yeah, taking control of my physical health, taking
Mhm.
control of my physical health. After losing the weight, you feel good in your clothes, but
Yeah.
then also just being able to feel strong when you lift or when you run or whatever it is so
Mhm.
that brings me a certain sense of joy. So just taking control of my physical health has made a difference. And the other thing I would say is that prioritizing time with my loved ones. My
Yes.
corporate career, I had to sacrifice a lot of holidays, a lot of special days, a lot of trips because I had this job. And when I realized that the
Yeah.
job didn't like me all that much,
Yeah.
it was like, okay, so I have just tied myself to this place that don't give a damn about me for real anyway. And so being able to make that break, I was able to really reprioritize and think about what's truly important and what this all is for. And so spending time with my loved ones has really just brought a different sense of joy, over the last few years.
That's awesome. You're replaceable at work, but you're not replaceable in your family. So it's
That's
important
right.
to put the family first.
That's right.
Yes.
That's
Well,
right.
thank you so much. I feel like we can go on and on. You are amazing. Thank you so much for telling us about what you went through because we all have a story and I really appreciate you. And it just shows that, somebody over here is listening. They're just like, okay, let me get the help that I need.
That's right.
So, I'm in 11 states, so you can come see me if you need a psychiatrist or therapist. Stay tuned for the outro credits, and you'll see that information. You can find Julia. Let's me pull that up. Your website is Julia. Nope, it is rockcareer.com.
That's right.
And your handles here, the Julia Rock on Instagram. And you're obviously on LinkedIn as your name, Julia Rock, and you're on YouTube with the same. So
Yes. I try to be consistent so people
I
don't have to
know.
search too hard to find me. So I would love to connect with anyone who's listening, would love to share more about my story. However I can empower you, I'd like to do that.
Yes. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. All
Thank you.
right. Bye-bye. This has been an Enjoy Life production. If you're in a crisis, don't hesitate. Call, text, or chat 988 for immediate support. Please note, this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional treatment. If you're looking for therapy or medication management through Enjoy Life, visit www.drenjoylife.com to request a consultation. I accept Aetna for Georgia residents, and out-of-pocket services are available for others. I'm licensed in Georgia, Florida, Michigan, Tennessee, Maryland, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Illinois, Virginia, and Minnesota. Be sure to grab your copy of the Enjoyno on Amazon for $39.08 to help you on your wellness journey. And remember, Journey to Joy Live is every Thursday at 7 p.m. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, may you continue to transform challenges into joy.